I wanna be Mad Mardigan. I wanna be Sir Orin Neville Smythe. Hello there, humans. It is I, Dael Kingsmill. You may not know this about me. I play fighters a lot. This is a D&D video. Hi, hello. I play fighters a lot, actually. In fact, most often I play champion fighters. And you know why that is? Because I just keep hoping that this time, maybe they'll be what they're meant to be instead of what they are. Okay, let me explain myself. So, going by the fluff of the fighter. Let me read the fluff of the fighter. Not the whole thing, I'm not losing my mind here or anything. Up here we've got a little reference to the fact that they're the most diverse class of characters. From the section well-rounded specialists, that there is what we call a thesis statement in the biz. Which biz? One of them. This combination of broad general ability and extensive specialization makes fighters superior combatants on battlefields and in dungeons alike. And if we go to the champions, specifically we've got the archetypal champion focuses on the development of raw physical power honed to deadly perfection. So based on that, the fighter as a class is intended to be versatile and specialized, and, just going by the name here, good at fighting. Now unfortunately it has been my experience every time I have played a fighter, I kind of just spend the whole time feeling like a total chump. I know some people disagree with me here, but I'm just talking about my experience every time I play with them. It's the idea that I'm meant to be this like badass frontline fighter, but when you're missing as often as, or in the case of being in a party full of casters, as has often been the case for me, more often, because the casters don't have to worry about missing most of the time, right? So you're the only one who seems to be missing, and it feels like you've just entered some slapstick comedy routine, like you're just falling face first into the mud. And even beyond that, just in general, the features that you get from the base fighter class and from the champion fighter subclass, they don't feel like they're giving me anything to play into the fantasy of what it is to be a fighter. My options feel limited, and even though you've got this whole stacked leveling, like every level you're getting something, but it's not like you're getting fresh new stuff every time. Usually it's a repeat of something you already have. I think one of the big sticking points here is that the mechanics are drawing so heavily on the action economy to source their power. You know, a lot of the fighter's core strength comes from the extra attacks that it gets and from the action surge, which you'll notice is just like attack, 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 attack. And that is powerful. It absolutely is, but it is also a tricky thing to base an entire class around for a few reasons. Because it gets a little bit repetitive. Because I think it's balanced for a 6-encounter adventuring day, which I feel like, you know, this many years in, I feel like we should all be able to agree that that mostly doesn't happen. And it's also tricky because it means that the fighter necessarily pales in comparison with the monk. I gotta put up a disclaimer here because people on the internet get a little bit cranky if you start comparing the fighter to the monk and saying, why does the fighter suck? You can't compare these features in a vacuum. You have to look at the whole class. Well, I'm telling you right now, I'm looking at the whole fighter class and I'm looking at the whole monk class and I'm going, what? Why? And I'm gonna go into more detail with this as we make our way through the different, features, but I need to say up top that I don't think it's unfair to compare the fighter with the monk. For starters, they're back-to-back in the book, so players are going to be looking at them back-to-back in the book. They're both martial classes, they both draw on the action economy to provide their biggest strength in combat, but the biggest reason that I don't think it is unfair to compare any one class to another class is that a party composition could very easily include a fighter and a monk. Maybe this is just a me thing, but I don't like to think of balance so much in terms of numbers, although that plays into it a great deal. I like to think of balance in terms of fun. Is this class as fun to play as this class? Because the minute two people are playing them together, two human beings at the same table, I don't want one player to have a bad time because their class hasn't been fun balanced with another player's class. So, you know, heads up. I will be comparing the fighter to the monk at various points, I think in fair ways. What it all boils down to, I think, is that I want fighters to represent something of their own. I want fighters to represent the idea that skill can keep up with magic. And not just in a cheap, easy abuse of the action economy kind of a way, but in terms of fun as well. You're not just swinging your sword more often, you're swinging your sword well. because this is what you do. I don't know, don't think of this as a recommendation, think of it as just a consideration. As with all things in the factory of the monarch, in the mill of the king. Alright, I'm just gonna start with tweaks that I would make to the base fighter that would affect all subclasses, and then I'll move on to champion afterwards. Now the fighting styles, already the fighter has access to more of them than either the paladin or the ranger, who also get access to fighting styles, but I think a few of them just fall a little bit flat in terms of like sounding cool. So archery, dueling, and great weapon fighting, they all already sound exciting to me. Those sound like exciting things. I get to reroll 1s and 2s on my damage dice. Nice. The other three, where's the book again? Let me read to you from the book real quick. All right, so we have defense. While you are wearing armor, you gain a +1 bonus to AC. If you're deeply familiar with the game, if you're playing over the course of a long campaign, then you know that there aren't that many ways to increase your AC, really, beyond just like buying better armor. But what does it sound? It sounds a little lackluster. 2-weapon fighting is in there. When you engage in 2-weapon fighting, you can add your ability modifier to the damage of the second attack. You have to go to a different section of the book to really cover this. If a player wants to do 2-weapon fighting, they can make an attack with their primary hand. Ooh, I'm right-handed. There's my attack. And when you add up the damage to that, you roll the dice for it, and then you add your ability modifier, as usual, right? But then you can make another attack, ooh, with your offhand weapon, as a bonus action. But when you roll the damage for that, you just roll the dice, you don't add your ability modifier. So 2-weapon fighting kind of gives you back what was taken away. And protection. When a creature you can see attacks a target other than you that is within 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction to impose disadvantage on the attack roll. You must be wielding a shield. So I have to imagine that this is for use like protecting your archers or your casters, your squishy folk. The tricky thing is that your squishy folk are not likely to be in, the thick of the battle, and you, a martial, sort of a tanky class, are quite likely to be in the thick of the battle. So the times that you will be standing within 5 foot of a person that you need to protect from an attack will either be not that common, or will be at the expense of using your many attack actions to actually further the battle. And I'm sure that mathematically all of these are working out to be about equal. These just feel a little 2D. So here are the tweaks that I would make. Defense, while wearing armor, you get a +1 to AC. While wielding a shield, you get a +1 to AC. So if someone wants to be a sword and board type, yes, that does probably add up to +2 AC. But bounded accuracy, Dael, you've lost your mind. I don't care. I'm not a coward. I can afford to give my players +2 to their AC. Come on now, I'll throw more casters at him. I'm the DM, I can plan for these things. Protection. You still have to be wielding a shield for this. I went a little bit bodyguard. I will always love you. Ooh, I will always love. When a creature within 5 feet of you attacks a target other than you, or a creature within 5 feet of you is targeted by an attack roll made by a creature that you can see, you can use your reaction to reduce the result of the attack roll by 1d6. Still some limitations in there, you're still spending something, you're losing your reaction in order to do this, but I just feel like it's a little bit more versatile. That's what that. And 2-weapon fighting, I just wanted it to feel like we were giving them something, rather than giving back something that was taken from them. And I know it wasn't that, but it feels like that, It feels like when it's your birthday in high school and your friend has stolen some of your stationery, and then on your birthday, they wrap it up in like 20 different layers of wrapping paper, and you have to get through every layer, and then you get to the bottom and it's like, ha! It's your red pencil that I stole, and it's a sick prank. That's a little bit like what 2-weapon fighting feels like. Like, you're not mad about it, but you also definitely weren't given a gift. So instead, I've got here that when making an attack as part of a reaction, you can attack once with each of those weapons. Once with your primary hand, once with your offhand. So it feels a little bit more like Wolverine or something, like, you can't get away from me, swing. I am torn as to whether or not I would also include your ability modifier in the offhand. Undecided. Second wind. Second wind is fun, but it also feels a little bit less significant the more you level. Like, even though you're adding your level to the hit points that you're regaining, just the fact that it doesn't, like, level up at any point makes it kind of feel like it never levels up. So I would just switch it to bonus action to regain hit points equal to 1d10 plus con instead of fighter level. And you can only use it once per short rest, but then at 7th level you can use it twice per short rest, and at 13th level you can use it thrice per short rest. Extra attacks and action surge. I'm grouping them together because we gotta talk about this action economy thing. I think there is a little bit of an over-reliance in these mechanics on giving the fighter extra attacks to give them the appearance of keeping up despite what is really a lack of class features. Extra attacks are good. I'm not saying that they're not good, but I am saying that the flurry of blows is so integral to the monk class by design that having the fighter focus on extra attacks as well means that the fighter necessarily pales in comparison. Extra attacks shouldn't be what we're hanging all of our hats on for the fighter, because I think this is why these two classes get compared, because they're kind of trying to fill the same role, but the monk is doing it better and gets a bunch of extra stuff on top of it. Okay, so at level 5, the fighter can typically make 2 attacks in one turn, and once per short rest, they can make 4 attacks in one turn. The 5th level monk beside them can typically make 3 attacks in every turn, and up to 5 times per short rest can make 4 attacks. Plus the monk has Stunning Strike. Now the fighter does keep getting more attacks as they level, so at higher levels they're gonna have more attacks than the monk does when using their action surge, of which they only have 1 until level 17. And we all know very few people are playing levels 17 through 20. The fighter's extra attacks and action surge just can't quite keep up with martial arts and key points for the most part. But that's fine, because they shouldn't be trying to.
Hello, it's me. It's midnight and I'm editing, but I had to film this to get in before someone starts typing up and says, oh, but the fighter does more damage. That's not what I'm talking about. The point that I'm making is that the fighter as a class is building its fun, its cool factor for the player by giving the player extra attacks. And in my opinion, it is executing that fun poorly. The monk, on the other hand, is building its fun from the same foundation, and I think it's much more successful. And I think part of why it's more successful is that it lets the player do it more often, it lets the player do it sooner, and it lets the player have more control over when it does or doesn't happen. Because they get to control when they're doing it via their key points, whereas the fighter is really beholden to the table and when the table tells them that they have extra attacks. So I'm not concerned with damage output. I'm concerned with how the class is structured to deliver fun to the player, and whether it is, doing that successfully.
Having said all that, I'm mostly leaving extra attacks and action surge intact. They are still cool. I just would like it if we didn't lean so much on that approach, which is why I'm replacing the 20th level extra attack. Does the fighter really need to be able to make 8 attacks in one turn? I feel like 6 is a great ceiling for that, and you're not really gonna make it to level 20 anyway. I'll come back to the level 20 thing in a minute. In the meantime, we're stopping at level 9, Indomitable, which yes, I will be comparing to the monk's Diamond Soul. Don't start with me. I don't know why you wouldn't compare them. They're both clearly filling a similar role. So the fighter at 13th level, twice per long rest, can re-roll a failed saving throw. The monk at 14th level gets anywhere up to 14 re-rolls of failed saving throws per short rest, and they get proficiency in all saving throws. I mean, yeah, the fighter gets it sooner, but it also never really gets better. They just get more of the same weak cordial. So for my suggested change, I don't know if I would change the name or if I would keep it as Indomitable, because it kind of still works. If I did change it, I would probably change it to something like Dauntless Fortitude. So starting at level 9, on a failed strength, dex, or con saving throws, specifically, the fighter can choose to take half damage. It's still once per long rest, and at 13th they can do it twice per long rest, and at 17th they can do it 3 times per long rest. The really big trade-off you have here is that Indomitable can be used on death saving throws, whereas this one can't. I would want my fighter to be good at stuff while conscious. One big point of this change is that now the comparison is less between Indomitable and Diamond Soul, and now it's between Dauntless Fortitude and the Monk's Evasion ability. This time the features are aiming to achieve similar but different things. So the fighters don't benefit from the added no damage clause if you happen to succeed on the save, but the fighter does get to use it on strength, dex, or con saves where the monk is limited to just dexterity saving throws. It's that versatility again. All right, and level 20, I've lifted the improved critical from the champion, and I've moved it over here. You roll a crit on a 19 or a 20. And if you already have this feature from the champion subclass, then you, at level 20, get a crit on an 18, a 19, or a 20. Instead of doing it twice for the champion, you do it once for the champion, and once for all the fighters. So, the champion. I gotta switch over to my notebook. Where did I put it? Real quick, just so that you know what I'm changing about the champion and why. Improved critical is the level 3 starting subclass ability for the champion. And it's a cool ability, but what I don't love about it is that it's very static. It is a thing that is true, and so now it's just... There's no interesting choices involved. Plus, you have to remember that a 19 is something to be excited about now, which can take a while to get used to. So when you compare it to the Battlemaster getting all these fancy maneuvers and the Eldritch Knight getting to cast spells, it's like, oh, and I have a 10% chance of critting now instead of a 5. It just doesn't feel as exciting. It's that flatness again. It's the fact that this is a cool, powerful ability, but it doesn't feel thrilling as your first foray into the subclass. I am completely gutting and replacing Remarkable Athlete. I wanted Remarkable Athlete to be good, but seriously, just take the athlete feat if you're allowed. So Remarkable Athlete, the first part reads, starting at 7th level, you can add half your proficiency bonus, round up, to any strength, dexterity, or constitution check you make that doesn't already use your proficiency bonus. For full clarity, this means only ability checks. This covers exactly 4 skill checks and initiative rolls. Initiative rolls is pretty good, but it also doesn't affect things that already have your proficiency bonus, so something like athletics or acrobatics that you are likely to have proficiency in also don't benefit from this. I mean, there are literally no constitution-based skills. It's pretty weak sauce. Remarkable Athlete also gives you a second little ability. It says, in addition, when you make a running long jump, the distance you can cover increases by a number of feet equal to your strength modifier. So only when it's a lengthwise jump, and only if you have a 10-foot run up first, can you add like 4 feet to the distance you can jump. Thrilling. I mean, look, everyone's level 7 ability is pretty piss weak, but that one really takes the cake. And superior critical is changing. At 15th level, you crit on an 18, a 19, or a 20, but we already covered that. So what am I replacing them with? Well, let me tell you. Frankly, it is my opinion that a champion fighter, if not fighters in general, should be successfully hitting their targets more often than other non-fighter classes. Look, casters don't need to worry about whether their spells will cast. Rogues don't really need to worry about whether their sneak is gonna sneak good. Fighters should not have to worry about whether they will fight good. Champion fighters should be allowed to shine, even in just being just a smidgen more likely to strike true than other combatants. But I also feel like if I just make this a full-on bonus to being able to hit, people will freak out on me. So I'm attaching it to a weapon. The 3rd level ability that you get upon becoming a champion fighter is Favored Weapon. I'm thinking a little bit like, you know, someone who is so familiar with this weapon. They know the exact weight, the balance, the cut of their weapon, inside and out. They know it like no other, and they can use it better than any other. I'm thinking something a little Sir Oren Neville Smythe. There's this movie called Flight of Dragons. It's a Rankin Bass movie, and it's not like good per se, but it's also one of my formative fantasy texts, you know? And there's this character in it who is so cool. His name is Sir Oren Neville Smythe. He wears armor with very pointy nipples, and spoiler alert, he has this killer death scene, right? He knows he's about to die, and he gives this speech. He says, "Blade with whom I have lived, blade with whom I now die. Serve right and justice one last time. Seek one last heart of evil, still one last life of pain. Cut well, old friend, and then farewell." And then he kills the evil dragon. I'm gonna put a link. I'm gonna put a link to the clip. Watch it, it's very cool. Anyway, the point is that I just like that idea of a fighter who is so bonded with their weapon. Not in the sense that an Eldritch Knight is, that they're like magically bonded with their weapon, which, P.S., that could stand to be a little bit stronger. But the champion fighter is bonded to their weapon in the sense of like, they have a history with it. They're just better at fighting when they use that weapon. So at level 3, you get favored weapon. You choose a specific weapon, not just like swords, but your sword. It becomes your favored weapon. A number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. When you make an attack roll with that weapon, you can choose to add half your proficiency bonus, again, on top of your usual attack bonus, to the attack roll. So half your proficiency bonus rounded down on top of your proficiency bonus and your ability bonus. 150% of your proficiency bonus is added to the... You feel me? It just scooches them up just a little bit, just to be a little bit more likely to hit. The champion fighter can change what their favored weapon is as they go by spending, I don't know, a long rest, a short rest, an hour's time, sort of training, practicing with the weapon, getting a feel for the new weapon, and they can sort of declare, this is now my favored weapon instead. See, that wasn't too wild, was it? No. Then at level 7, this is when the champion fighter gets their improved critical. From here on, they crit if they roll a 19 or a 20, until of course 20th level, when they would get the expansion from the base fighter stuff. At level 10, the champion fighter still gets to choose an additional fighting style, just like they used to, because now I don't feel like half of those fighting styles are a little bit sad. At level 15, I have replaced the superior improved critical with something I call deadly skill, for lack of a better name. But they say right there in the fluff, they say that they're meant to be, their skill is honed to deadly perfection, and I need to see it somewhere. Anywhere that isn't a long jump. Starting at level 15, when a champion fighter uses their favored weapon ability, they can choose to forego the bonus to the attack and instead add their proficiency bonus to the damage roll. So ordinarily, you make an attack with proficiency, you don't make your damage roll with proficiency. With this ability, you can choose to add your proficiency to your damage roll. And it's using the favored weapon ability, so it's using that same limited pool of activations per long rest. And then at level 18, I'm actually keeping Survivor. I think for a level 18 subclass ability, it's pretty good. But all those other things are changes I would consider making to the champion fighter and fighter class as a whole. I just need to see the fighter skilled at fighting, because fighting is what we do. So let me fight good, please. Anyway, I had feelings about that. I suspect people in the comments will have feelings too. I think there's gonna be at least one person, I'm placing a bet now, I think there's gonna be at least one person who has seen Flight of Dragons and who is telling me that, actually, so Oren Neville Smythe is more of a paladin than a fighter. And you know what, that's fine. Leave your opinions in the comments. I'd like to hear them. I'm just sharing mine with you. You could share yours with me. It'll be an opinion party. Apart from that, I do believe that's it. I'm done. Email this to your grandma if she plays fighters. And I'll see you some other time. Legolas. Legolas is a fighter. Imagine being like a Legolas or Robin Hood style archery fighter and having that favored weapon thing and just being able to be like, yeah, I'm not gonna miss today, sucker.